We're a very raw live podcast here. We just go with the flow. So, welcome to HYPNOPOD. This is HYPNOPOD. It's either 2 or 3.
HYPNOPOD.
Have you seen? I don't know if you saw. No pressure. I don't want to put you on the spot. Have you seen HYPNOPOD episode number 1?
I don't believe I have yet. I know about it. I'm aware of it.
Yeah, Ryan and I did the episode, the first one. So I believe this is number 2 officially. We probably have like 6 unofficial ones. So welcome. Today we have our good friend, James Duval.
Thank you.
Did I say Duval correctly?
Duval, tomato, yeah.
You might know him from Nowhere, Doom Generation. Totally fucked up. Not in that order. I don't know what the order is. Sure, it's good. I'm sure there's an order there. What's been going on with you? How's it going?
Happy to have gotten up this morning. Happy to be here, part of the podcast with you all, having a beer and just talking about the world we live in and life in general. Mm-hmm. Life in the so-called space age.
The bubble.
The bubble.
No hey, podcast. Look who's here. We have the studio cat. Come here. Can we say hello?
Mr. Katzenova. Mr. Catty.
Okay. We are introducing for the first time Studio Kitty. This is Mr. Katzenova.
We were waxing pontification on world issues not just 5 minutes ago.
Oh, he never does this. He knows the cameras are rolling and the sound is recording. He's like, I'm going to go sit on the lap.
Well, we rehearsed with him, so it's only fair that he's in it.
Now he's going to have to be part of every single show. Yeah. Now all the fans, all 3 of you, are going to say, hey, where's the kitty?
Katzenova's Hypno Podcast.
I think we should change the name from HYPNOPOD to Katzapod.
What do you say, Katzapod? What did you say, Katzenova?
What's next then? What should we talk about? Nothing people will normally talk about on the podcast.
What was on the last episode?
We just ended up talking about, maybe you'll have an input on this. We were talking about the
podcast 3.
2/3 of it probably. We were talking about when Darth Vader goes, no! Right? And we were talking about how, what else? That it just took you out of the movie.
Well, it's interesting, yeah, because it's interesting that you say that because there's actually 2 movies that he does that in.
Which one? What's the other one?
And they added it to the other one. It wasn't in the original version. So in Return of the Jedi, when Luke is getting electrocuted by Darth Sidious, by the Emperor, in the original version I saw in the theaters as a child, he kind of just looks and he looks and he looks and he just grabs the Emperor and he throws him down the shaft while he's taking he's taking the electrocution as well because it turns on the Emperor. So I guess it's kind of out of control. So he's just fully unloading it before he throws the Emperor down the shaft. And at least in our version, he died. And when they did the special editions, they added him saying, no, and then he picks up the Emperor and throws him. And we were never really happy with that. But that being said, it's not a surprise that maybe, what was the special editions, 96, 97? So,
yeah, around there, right, like 2 years before.
In 2005 when he did Revenge of the Sith, because he did it was kind of a test run for the prequels, the effects and whatnot. So it's kind of a test run. And so you end up with the no in Revenge of the Sith, 8 years later, 9 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about what could they have done alternatively, right? Like, so he tells him the news. He says, what happened to Padme? And Palpatine says, in your anger, you seem to have killed her. And he's, okay, so if you were, let's say you were directing the scene, or you write, what is another Darth Vader reaction that would have worked better? Him saying something else? Ryan said he pounds the wall next to him or the ground in anger.
Believe it or not, I don't know who did it, and he got in a lot of trouble for it, but it was actually pretty amazing. And this is not to knock George Lucas's original vision, because these days when I go back and watch it after all these years, they actually hold up very well. But there was these edits that a fan edits of the 3 prequel films of The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, done. I can't remember the editor's name, but they're basically called the anti-cheese edits. And in each movie, he went and added or changed stuff that kind of, I thought were really great ideas, actually, to be quite honest, and works very well on those levels too. And so, for example, with The Phantom Menace, one of the things he did is he changed Jar Jar and the Gungans and the Nemodians all to having an alien language and being subtitled. Thus sort of taking a little bit of the humor out of it, to be quite honest, and making it a little bit more sci-fi, which was kind of cool, more in the line of the original Star Wars, that, the original A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And he does the same thing with the Attack of the Clones, and he does the same thing with Revenge of the Sith. But one of the key things he does in Revenge of the Sith that works is he somehow is able to take out the no. So everything else is the same, you just don't hear no. So he says, it seems in your anger you've killed her, and he freaks out and he breaks everything up and he just goes, ah, but he never says no. And it seems to work a little, actually much better.
Yeah.
Just without the no. You can still have him freaking out. Because if you think about it, he's wearing a mask. You don't see his lips. So you could just technically just move that track out of the sound and keep everything else the same, and it works.
Right. Yeah. I've seen there's some YouTubers that put multiple different options instead of the no. And there's what's the famous, the Wilhelm scream?
Oh,
right. So they replaced his, they replaced Darth Vader's no with the Wilhelm scream or car crashing in multiple different versions.
Yeah. The anti-cheese one's probably my favorite one, in the sense that it didn't change it at all. There's just no in it.
Yeah.
He's just destroying everything.
And what's crazy about those non-cheese edits is, and that included the one where Jar Jar is just subtitled.
Yes, he doesn't speak
So
English.
it's crazy what you could do with editing. You just put in you get rid of his voice, you put in some
alien language,
language.
and then they completely change the dialogue too. So it really does work. I mean, interestingly enough, like I said, I do love George Lucas's original vision and the original cut, and the anti-cheese edits would almost be like a more adult cut of the film, is maybe how I would describe it. Mm-hmm. For those who didn't want something because of the first one's definitely geared towards children, and it makes a lot of sense if you think about it in the theory of storytelling. So you want to start somewhere, you're going to go somewhere. So if you're going to go really dark, you got to start really light. So that makes sense. Start kind of kiddie, because you're going to go somewhere very, very, very dark. Of course, I think me and all the fans around the world have different ideas of what they would have liked to have seen. But in the end, it makes a lot of sense in the story. And, for the journey of Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader, and then Luke Skywalker coming in to redeem his father. And the movies on those 6 movies stand, beautifully on their own.
Mm-hmm.
I, unfortunately wasn't, such a fan of the sequel movies. I thought they were incredibly well filmed and incredibly well made. And no offense to the original 6, which are my favorite, probably the best acting of all the movies, but the worst to me storytelling.
Right. Yep.
Just not as cohesive. I mean, I know a lot of people who like it, and I don't want to be one of those haters that knock it. If people like it, that's great. It just didn't really go there for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, where I expected the story to go, or, I'm certainly not the creator nor the storyteller, or where I would have, liked to have seen the story go. For various reasons, it's just I had issues with the sequels.
Yeah, it shows you how important it is. That
as much as I love all the actors and everybody involved in making it.
Yeah, because if you watch a lot of the making of those 3 episodes, amazing, incredible amount of work.
Yeah, and everybody's great in them.
Yeah,
but making a great movie and being great in a film still doesn't make a great movie.
Yep. And then it shows you how important it is before you're going to take on a trilogy. If you got to have the full story fleshed out first. You can't just go
great acting.
Everything.
It looks incredible, but there was something like that just didn't seem to. I don't want to say it's necessarily trying to like catch that lightning in a bottle twice so much as it's just something that just didn't seem to resonate in quite the same way. And I got to say, I really loved Rogue One. I really loved the Andor TV series. I like The Mandalorian for the most part. I really enjoy it. I didn't love Boba Fett. Didn't love Obi-Wan. I did like some of The Acolyte. Didn't love it, but I liked it more, I think, than most people. But even then, there was still some things. I guess everybody has things when it comes to Star Wars these days, don't we?
Yeah.
It's almost crazy. It's like, how do you do it right?
Yeah, it's tough. And I agree with you on from your list, Mandalorian and I already lost my train of thought. And Andor, Rogue One. If I had to pick two of the Disney, I'd say Mandalorian and Rogue One are the pure space war, Star Wars. It's all about wars, and it's gritty, and that's what Star Wars is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be polished like 7, 8, 9 were. It's not supposed to be polished. It was still polished. And Rogue One had a grit. That's what it is. Rogue One. And you know what? Solo was not too bad.
I was going to say, I actually really enjoyed Solo. I really enjoyed Solo.
It had heart.
I didn't have suffice it to say, I think the backlash against Last Jedi and then releasing Solo 6 months later hurt Solo in a way that it shouldn't have. Now, I understand a few of the gripes that people might have had, but when I watched the movie, those ended up not being my complaints. I thought, again, that all the actors were great. I thought it looked stunning. I loved the story. I enjoyed it. I had a really great time. I laughed a lot. I thought it was really cool. God, I thought Tandy Newton really stood out in that. God, she's so great in everything she does. But she's so great to see her in that. And with Woody Harrelson's love interest, and God, Woody Harrelson's always so great and everything. He's so great in it. And Alden Ehrenreich is. He made a great young Han Solo. I thought he was fantastic. I really liked him.
He has heart. There's a lot of something to be said about an actor that you believe as a person.
He was great.
He came across as very likable.
Jonas Suotamo as Chewbacca. Like, there are things being made. It's interesting because I'm definitely, I'm older, so I don't want to necessarily say I'm jaded, but I'm more opinionated.
30's still young, man.
Yeah, I'm just more opinionated than I was.
You still got it.
Yeah, more opinionated than I was in my teens anyway. And so being more opinionated, there's certainly some things I would like to have seen that I didn't see, and saw some things that I wouldn't have liked, that I didn't like seeing. That being said, I'm still happy just to get Star Wars, I guess.
Yeah. I would take bad Star Wars over no Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's pretty much what you're saying, right?
Well, to a degree. I mean, I don't know if I'd necessarily go with that statement.
Okay, maybe because if they could totally mess with canon, and it's like,
they have.
Yeah, they have already, and you can't go back from that.
Yeah, and that becomes the unfortunate part, is they've messed with it in ways. I understand trying to world build, but when you take away from the origin stories of it, when you do that canon, that's where it becomes difficult, I think, for a lot of people. Like, that was a lot of people's problem with The Acolyte, which that was not my problem with The Acolyte. I didn't have those problems like that with The Acolyte, to be honest. If anything, I probably I would just like to have seen more about some of the characters, characters I would have liked to see more developed a little bit, but for the most part, I did really enjoy the show and didn't have a problem with the Force being seen in other ways and other Force cults existing a way that's different than you would imagine it or want to agree. And it's kind of like the religions we have today. They fight each other. They kill each other over the way they believe in God. So it wouldn't be weird that you'd have all these different facets of the Force that people fight and kill each other over the way they believe in the Force, the way they practice the Force, or
in their
what
interpretation.
The Force,
in their interpretation,
exactly what the Force is, the Force or the thread. Like, that wasn't my problem. I didn't have a problem with that, or a coven of witches not being the witches of Dathomir.
All right, this is going to be random. The Matrix or Blade Runner? You have to pick one.
That's a tough one.
And let me know why. Let me know why you picked.
Well, it's tough because I love both of those films, but I'm going to have to probably pick Blade Runner because it came 2.5 decades before, a little over 2.5 decades before The Matrix, where it really calls into question what being human is. Now, I love The Matrix because it questions our reality and the future of like what it is to be human in the future and what we've become, what we could be used as a battery or whatnot for AI or artificial life, which is, I think, a conundrum and something, we're dealing with in present day, the very beginnings of that world. But the idea of Blade Runner, where it's not necessarily AI or robots, but literally living sentient things that think and feel and fear and dream and love. And if you look at the time that they made Blade Runner in 81, I'm sorry, and it came out in 82. And, it was probably one of the most expensive movies made at that time, 40 million, but you didn't have computer generated graphics back then. So it was miniatures and matte paintings and a completely different way of approaching something that when you watched it, took you straight into the future. And it's incredible because if you watch it today, even though it takes place in 2019, which now is, 5 years in the past, the movie has such a futuristic feel to it still. And it's almost like it takes place in an alternate reality, an alternate future. And still could, in that sense, have a connotation to the reality and the future that we have facing it right in front of us. Like I said, with the AI and robots that we're building and the technology, how far we've moved with the technology today.
Something's going to happen in the next 20 years. Some technology is going to have to take over as far as getting people from one place to another. But I think the Waymo, those cars that are driving themselves, that does feel like the future.
Well, I think the future, which unfortunately the United States is a little bit behind on, but exists in Japan and China and in Europe, is when you have a country like the United States that's really spread out, or like China or Europe, which is not as, everything's really close by in Europe, but what makes it, I think, very efficient is they have an incredible train system that goes everywhere.
For sure.
And same thing with China and Japan, and it's high speed. And we don't have high speed rail in this country yet. And that type of transportation will change everything. You had Elon Musk, who I'm not a huge fan of, but that hyperlink tube he was talking about.
Yeah, from here to Vegas or something.
It's been abandoned now. But that was an interesting idea. And on larger distances too, you just put people in this tube and just shoot them through.
Yeah.
But that would appear to me to be a more viable form of long distance transportation in the future than airplanes or what we have now, especially with that carbon footprint that the airplanes leave. And
I think eventually, I think they're already building this. So
they are working.
They're
on
building
it.
on some kind of
their infrastructure is
something from here to Vegas. I mean,
all over the country, they're planning it.
I heard about one specifically here. They're finally going to do
San Francisco,
high speed,
and they're talking about extending it in other parts of the country. So it'll probably get done in the next couple of decades.
And the only problem I saw with their proposal was that it's leaving from Palmdale, Lancaster. And I'm sorry for anybody who's from Palmdale, Lancaster, but that's like 30, 45 minutes north of LA. So you're going to have to, which is actually not too bad. I would drive up to Palmdale, Lancaster, up the 14 freeway, where they filmed specific. This is a side note. I believe Steven Spielberg's Duval, the one with the truck, was filmed on the 14 freeway.
I do believe you'll
might be wrong.
I also believe you'll be able to catch it. If you could take the Metrolink out to San Bernardino, you can catch it from out there as well.
And so it'll be high speed. So you would drive out to San Bernardino, which is
Well, no,
that's
you could take a train from here. You take the Metrolink from here to San Bernardino.
So you're saying you could take a train the entire way from LA?
Yeah, and then in San Bernardino, you jump on the high speed link.
Okay, yeah, that could work. The only part of going to airports that is okay, makes everything okay, is those people mover things.
Yes, it helps
because you know, like when you walk faster on them, and you walk faster. You know,
well, they have those moving floors in the airport, but this people mover will move you from terminal to terminal, which is something LAX doesn't have. It has the movers where you can stand on it and just go, which I do love, and it does help when you're.
You mean the flat ones, yeah?
Yeah, when you're going down a long.
Yeah,
when you're in just one terminal that's super long.
Yeah,
but when you need to switch terminals at LAX, you're like pretty much shit out of luck. So that people mover will help that in the sense that it gets you from one terminal to the other without having to walk basically outside and go out of security and then walk all the way out to the whatever airlines it is and then go back through security and put your bags through and do it all over again. Freaking nightmare.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to go until we finish our beers. Okay. That's the new rule.
We're almost finished, but I think we've covered some very important subjects tonight.
I'll give you...
Covered the people mover. We've covered Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Darth Vader, Scream. Yeah.
Darth Vader, Scream.
No!
Covered Blade Runner and The Matrix.
We were saying, would it be cool if he said, fuck? Does that take you out of the Star Wars universe, right? You would.
No, that works.
Do they say fuck in Star Wars? No. There's no fuck.
No.
We're getting beeped. This is totally...
No, it's a podcast. You can cuss.
We can cuss, right? Fuck.
Yeah, I don't think there's a fuck in Star Wars. Not maybe on the TV shows. Maybe on one of the TV shows, someone says curses. Maybe Andor says motherfucker or shit. I can't remember one of them. Andor curses, but that didn't bother me.
And with that,
condensation.
We're going to go eat some golden Oreos because they're awesome, actually. I'm not a fan of the normal Oreos, but golden Oreos are on a different level. I don't know.
Golden Oreos are, well, exactly that. They're golden.
They're golden.
They're golden. Can't beat golden Oreos.
With that, we will say a good night and bid thee adieu.
Bid you adieu. That's good night and good luck.
And go USA. We're in the middle of the Olympics. We hope that we take all the golds, especially track and field. It's the only real Olympics sport, right? It's the only thing that really matters. Nobody cares about anything else. You can call it Big Questions Pod.
Catsanova's Questions HYPNOPOD.
Catsanova Pod. It's the kitty pod. He's a good boy.
Welcome to Catsanova's Big Questions HYPNOPOD.
Big Questions HYPNOPOD.
Stay tuned for the next episode.
And thank you for watching and listening.
Till next time.
We shall see you again. In your anger, you seem to have killed her. What does he say? In your anger, you seem to have killed her.
No.